straight up the best thing that I did for my life, the quality of my life, the direction in which it's headed, the quality of my relationships and my mental and emotional health was face all of the shit that I didn't want to face in myself, about myself, in my life. It was to work on myself and my blind spots, look at all my ineffective behaviors and how they caused negative and frustrating results and consequences in my life, and then face those consequences and own them, and then chose to do something about it, and then got to work on them. That was crucial. In today's video, I am going to tell you how I did this, the key things that I think you need to consider, and one absolutely crucial step that every man needs in order to not only make this decision, but bring this decision into life, especially towards the end. I'm going to give you the key clincher for this one. Hey there, legend. I'm Mike Campbell, the anti-nice guy men's coach. I'm an author, I'm the founder of the Everyday Legends Academy. I support nice guys in building self-worth, self-respect, and a deep sense of security so that you can kill your nice guy and get so much more from your life, from love, and from the everyday, so that you can drop the conditional kindness, stop acting in service of your insecurity, adapting to the world to feel safe, to feel okay, and finally become solid, secure, and unfuckwithable good man. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you get something from it. Tell us that it is benefiting you. It helps us create content for you. Don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay updated whenever we drop new content. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button to join, follow along, and gain access to exclusive offers as well as content when we share them. All right, let's hit today's video. How I changed my life, the best decision that I ever made. And look, at times it wasn't easy, but the best decision by far I ever made for my own life, my relationship now, and my now daughter was, and therefore my family, was to face and deal with my shit, to continually be in the game of both growth and self-acceptance, choosing self-respect and choosing to be honest with myself, regardless of how uncomfortable that was or where it takes me. And something that a lot of nice guys struggle with, which was, and I did initially, it was to have a truckload of grace for myself. No longer choosing the path of constantly beating myself up and being wildly hard on myself and punishing myself and hating on myself and all this really negative internal self-talk, hoping it would take me to a kind and respectful place. Of course it won't, right? You can't hate yourself to a nice place, to self-love, to self-respect. But I also respected myself enough that I didn't let this grace piece extend to just taking the piss, not giving a crap, and kind of constantly letting myself away with stuff. That is the other end of the spectrum when it comes to I beat myself up, I don't give a shit at all. Grace is actually self-respect. It's facing my shit. It's being compassionate with myself and being determined to make change where I need to make change. And it all started with facing all of the shit that I didn't want to face or I didn't want to touch. Because if we don't face the consequences of the shit that isn't working for us, the ineffective shit that we do, we are doomed to repeat them, right? You probably know the quote, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. It's the same for you. It's the same for me, for all of us. If you don't learn from your past, even the immediate past of an action that you took earlier today, you are likely to repeat it, doomed even. If we don't learn from the shit that ain't working, then we are just going to keep repeating those things and hoping for different. And hope can be great, but it is useless if it doesn't have action. So this is what I did. I took on this task, a project, I call it. The purpose, me. It's what we call it in my program, the Everyday Legends Academy. Project Me. The most important project that you will take on in your life. Because as men, we are wonderful at taking on different projects, size, magnitudes, importance, whatever it is, applying ourselves to achieve a result. What a lot of us miss, perhaps don't necessarily understand or learn, is that the most important project you have is yourself, because everything comes under that umbrella, right? A rising tide raises all ships. And so your task, your job, my task that I took on was to rise the tide of my ship. Everything in my life comes under that umbrella. And so that was my task, to understand myself, why I do what I do, why I believe what I believe about myself and the world around me and my place in it, my fears, the insecurities that I have, all the ways in which I sabotage myself, things that I want and why I want them, what actually drives my actions, drives my desires. And I chose to explore all of the vulnerable parts of me that I had hidden in the shadows. I chose to make change. I chose to grow and become who I'm capable of becoming, which, to be clear, I am still, right? And always in the process of becoming. It is not a point of becoming perfect, some perfect dude, far from it, but is a worthy work in progress journey. And yet, when I made this decision, I couldn't do nor carry all of it alone. Now, I tried initially, right? Reading, learning, even doing courses, intellectualizing ideas. But strangely enough, that just gathering information, learning, didn't make much actual change in my behaviors or the deeply held beliefs I had about myself, my insecurities, my fears. It kind of added to the internal noise. You might have experienced this yourself because now I know, right? I knew better, but I couldn't implement it. It wasn't actually turning over and going into my actions, not to any real or significant depth and impact, in the way that I could. But this idea that I had that I need to do this all alone, that had to die. Right? The idea that I could do it all alone, it had to die because I attempted it. I didn't want to look like I needed help, even though by reading books and listening to podcasts and seeking out answers and courses and whatever it might be, that is an admission that I can't do it alone. Yet we try and do that part of it alone. So the idea that I needed to and could do it all alone, it had to die. Right, this idea that I am somehow less of a man, a failure, weak, or anything else that might live rent-free in your mind, that has to die. It must die. And for me, since that time, I have increased my capacity to navigate tough shit, carry shit, face shit massively. But I still cannot do all of that shit alone. I can't see my blind spots. I can't provide external inspiration, accountability, or challenge from unseen and unexperienced angles. I just can't do that. These all come in the company of others. Now, critically for men, especially nice guys, these must come in some way in the company of good men. And yet for so many nice guys, they fear this, which actually tells me that they haven't really ever had the company of good men. I see this all the time, right? Guys, nice guys, afraid of stepping into a challenging, honest environment with good, honest men. And that just simply tells me that they haven't been around good men before. You haven't experienced it. And what I mean is men who can hold space for all of you, your strengths, your insecurities, all of your shit, your fears, all of you. Men who can support you, men who can encourage you, who want to see you win, and will also challenge you, who will keep you honest and hold you accountable to the man that you are capable of being. It is remarkable what we can achieve, what we can step into, what we can face and take on and overcome when we have men around us to not only encourage us, but who are doing the same things. Think about that for a moment. It provides the greatest piece of motivation and inspiration and guidance and accountability when we're in that environment, where that is part of the oxygen, let's say, that we breathe. Because here's the thing, as a rule, nice guys tend to avoid strong, challenging, insightful men, right? The fear of being seen, like truly, deeply seen by those men, it terrifies the nice guy. I want you to think about this for yourself. And I know this because I've been there. You might have experienced this, right? The idea of your depths, all of you, your weaknesses, so-called weaknesses, all the ways in which you judge yourself or fear judgment or rejection from others, right? Having those seen by men who can see it, being challenged on it, being called forward into doing something about it, right? That can be way too much to even face the idea of it. And so, generally speaking, the nice guy, he doesn't. It is easier, way easier to avoid that kind of company, even though we keep suffering the consequences of all of that shit. And that is not easy, and that is not pleasant, and that is uncomfortable. We rationalize it in our mind that the pain of doing something about it, the pain of being seen in an environment that will actually invite me and enforce me to do something about it, terrifying. So we avoid the company that would help us move through the shit that we move through, need to move through. But that's why, as I said at the top, for me, as it will be for you, we have to face the consequences of the shit that isn't working. Therefore, we have to face the shit that isn't working because it gives us some of the information about what we need to do. Yes, that can be confronting. But when you are serious about actual change, right? When you truly want to change, like, you know what? This shit here can no longer continue. I have to do something about it. I know there is more for me. I know there is more in me. It is time. Then you will be ready for that kind of company, the company of good men, despite the risk of being seen or the risk of it being absolutely terrifying. And when that happens, right, when you find it, while it can be uncomfortable to be seen, deeply seen, and invited forward into growth, it is endlessly supportive, safe, encouraging, and uplifting. It shows us the way and it gives us permission. So, where can you take this today? So, back to me briefly to convey a lesson for you. Personally, I hold integrity to be one of my highest values. It always has kind of been, I suppose, a bit of an innate thing for me. And I think it is for everyone, by the way, but we often learn how to tune out from it and then it gets all muddled and all messed up. So I've kind of, always held this compass around integrity and what was right for me. However, back in my nice guy days, I abandoned and turned away from that a lot and therefore abandoned and disrespected and didn't honor myself. And so I got further away from integrity. And even as I started to do this work and face myself and all of my shit, left alone, I'm still left with all the wriggle room and justifications that I have. My integrity was still rough around the edges, let's call it. I thought that it had to be kind of rigid and immovable, right? I've got to do everything, and this. But really, what that did was just keep me from maintaining it, and it kept me in a cycle of beating myself up. This kind of expectation of perfection, almost. What I realized is that integrity needs flexibility. Integrity speaks to the strength of a structure, right? You, in this video right now, you are the structure. And so your integrity speaks to your strength. But for a strong structure, there must be some flexibility. So if you think about for a moment the idea of, let's say a large building, a skyscraper in somewhere like Tokyo, or a very windy place, right? They are subject to the forces of the earth or the wind. So if they're rigid, they're brittle. You think about, in Tokyo, if there's an earthquake, that building has to be flexible enough. It has to be strong enough and therefore flexible enough and therefore strong enough again to handle the movements of the earth, to handle the movements or the pressures placed on it. If it's rigid, it's brittle and it breaks. So integrity strength has to have flexibility. And this is where we struggle so much often as nice guys, because we think that means wriggle room. So we're not specific, we're vague in our commitments, we're vague in our wants, and all that does is allow for wriggle room, and it allows all of my little justifications, all of my little, pieces of, because let's face it, we are the perfect people to talk ourselves in or out of anything. And generally speaking, when it comes to growth and edges for nice guys, that means talking ourselves out of things. And that's where wriggle room comes in. That is very different to flexibility. Integrity, this work invites me into being specific about what I want, about commitments. So therefore, it asks me to execute on it. Where I am vague, where I leave wriggle room, I will wriggle out of. And wriggle room takes me out of integrity, it weakens me. Flexibility is knowing when to prioritize something and when not to prioritize something, when something is for me and when something isn't for me. For an example, if I said to you that I was going to get to the gym today, that was my commitment, and do, X workout, whatever it is, and then I get a phone call from a good friend who is in need of my support, and I'm like, yeah, bro, but I can't because I said I'd go to the gym, and that's my integrity. What I'm showing there is the difference between wriggle room and flexibility. In that moment, supporting my friend is more important. So I get to, and I need to be able to have that flexibility. Whereas if I'm saying I don't want to go to the gym because I could just fuck around and do this thing over here, that's wriggle room where I pull myself out of integrity. Learning that is a big, certainly a video beyond this one, a big piece for nice guys. And for me, understanding my integrity, understanding flexibility within that was crucial. But here's the thing. I did not just get to this point alone. How I clarified this, how I made it infinitely stronger, has been in the company of good men. Those men who I work with, right? The men who work with me, who I coach and support and lead, and the men I am in supportive, challenging, accountability-based relationships with, right? I lead men, I support, I coach, I challenge, I guide men, and I am a peer with men who can do the same for me. They all play an immense part in my growth because I am invited into being a model of integrity, of self-respect, and having it modeled to me. These are all crucial for me, my growth, the health of my relationships, my family, my business, and my life. Allowing myself to be seen by men, supported by them, and in, let's call it pragmatic problem solving, get shit done mode. This has allowed me to 10x multiple times in my life over the last 10 years. And I want this for the men who work with me, as well as any men who haven't perhaps taken that step into that yet, or even just want to consume my content. And that might be you. I want this for the men who subscribe to this channel, to my content, to my podcast, who struggle with certain things that persist, that frustrate, that cause you, kind of grief and, low level yet consistent annoyance in your life, right? Where you're aware of what you're doing and why you don't want to do it, and where you're being a nice guy, and, you kind of have nice guy syndrome as this like conjoined twin that's always attached to you. For you men out there who not only want that frustrating shit to change for good, to be able to put it down for good, to move past it, but to actually be able to truly step into feeling solid, secure, grounded, at peace with yourself. This is what I want for you. This is what I call the everyday legend, an unfuckwithable good man, right? It's the embodiment of this ancient Greek term that we use in our work called Zeus energy. And that encompassed an open and curious mind, robust health, goodwill, compassionate decisiveness, and generous leadership. They saw it as male authority accepted for the sake of the community. And it means starting with self so I can be a useful member of community, a useful person. That is at the heart of every man. The purpose in Project Me, being the most useful man that you can be for yourself and those people around you and your immediate environment. That is the work that we embark on in my coaching program, the Everyday Legends Academy, ELA. It is the journey that I am committed to taking men on. Men brave enough to truly commit to themselves, to their growth, to their potential, despite not having all the answers, despite having hesitation, fear, frustration, consistently, packing around their nerves about what the journey might ask of them, fear around, being seen, all this shit, facing the shit, being in confrontation with this shit. This is, in essence, being human. For those familiar with the hero's journey, this is what has been represented in the human experience from day dot. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. We often, especially nice guys, want the answers, the confidence, the certainty before we step into the challenging thing. And it cannot work like that. It doesn't and it won't. The certainty comes from certainty in self whilst facing the unknown. Real change requires a confrontation. And this looks like many things depending on the person, the context, the situation. But ultimately, it means confronting yourself, all of your shit, your fears, your edges, your limitations, your insecurities. Because when we commit to challenging things, we are instantly brought into confrontation with ourselves. When you commit to big, challenging, specific things, you are instantly brought into confrontation with yourself, with your limits, with your edges, your fears, your insecurities, all of it. When you confront yourself, when you meet yourself at an edge, you can choose the same familiar path, the same familiar things that you know, even though they don't serve you, even though they are frustrating for you, even though they are causing all sorts of bullshit consequences in your life. Or you can embark on an adventure that asks you to step into growth, into the unknown, and into a greater potential and greater capability. The very place where all of your potential exists. Because when you do that, it creates a situation where growth is necessary, where you have to take action, let go of some old beliefs and patterns, and step up into some new ones, into new ways of being. You find capability through the action into the unknown, right? It's one where the steps to get there emerge, they reveal themselves after you step, never before. It's where the part of you keeping you at your current level must die. A necessary death for the rebirth of potential, the rebirth of who you can be, or said perhaps in simpler language, we have to outgrow some old beliefs and identities if we want a new, stronger, more capable self to emerge. That is very simple. That is kind of self-growth, evolution 101, let's say. But none of this happens in isolation. Left to your own devices, and you probably know this and have experienced this, you remain in the company of your limitations. You remain in the company of all of your bullshit justifications, your fear, your resistance, your blind spots, your insecurities. They win when faced with uncomfortable growth. If we want to feel wildly confident and comfortable before we step. This is all why the Everyday Legends Academy exists, to create an Australasian community of unfuckwithable good men. Because a good man is a useful man, a purposeful, intentional man, a safe, solid legend. This man is sovereign, right? He is self-governing. He is self-respecting, most definitely. He is at peace within himself and has a solid sense of security, not based on all the external world or opinions of others, but on his own internal self-worth and compass, his integrity, an integrity that guides his life. He knows who he is, and he is comfortable there, not because he's perfect, but because he's okay with imperfection. He is okay with being a fallible human, and he is stronger for being in self-acceptance because he can actually hold that duality of self-growth and self-acceptance. I am enough as I am, and I'm a work in progress. I am capable of more. This man is at peace in himself, in the world, and allows the world to adapt to him instead of the nice guy who is constantly adapting to the world to try and feel safe and even the slightest sense of peace. I'm going to repeat that. This man is comfortable in himself enough to show up in the world and allow the world to adapt to him instead of the nice guy who is constantly adapting to feel okay in the world. Because here's my commitment, here's my belief. All men deserve a legendary life experience like this. And so if this appeals to you, this is my invitation to you, depending on when you're watching this. But ELA is now open for enrollments for the second half of 2024. That starts with a simple yet deeply clarifying application process. You can see the link in the description. Now, clicking that link is no obligation. It is really about fact-finding initially, for you and for us. There, you'll answer some questions designed to gather the appropriate information on you so that you and we can establish if ELA and what we offer can be the full and remarkable solution for you as it has been for the hundreds of men that have come before you. If you want to fundamentally change, improve, expand the trajectory of your life, click that link and apply today. And I do not fuck around with that statement of changing the trajectory of your life. Even if you are only thinking, yeah, I only really need a bit of fine tuning. A few degrees in the wrong direction is still a very long way in the wrong direction across time. This work with good men leads to deep insight, awareness, clarity, direction, aligned action, integrity, and a life of deep meaning, of deep joy, of deep clarity. I have seen it many times and I live it myself. This is the standard I have come to set for myself. Again, this is not about being perfect. It is about a mode of being and an approach to life. And I get so much purpose from inviting men forward into setting a standard for themselves like that. So, if it is time to get a little taste of this for yourself, click below and dive in. Otherwise, take the lessons from today into your life. Face your shit, have strong, safe, challenging, honest men in your corner, and bravely go on the path of becoming the man you are capable of becoming. Even though you might struggle to believe that there is anything there for you, you have capability, but there's possibly a bunch of your shit in the way. Until you see it and remove it and develop the skills, know-how, support, community, environment to step through it, it's not going to happen. But it's there if you allow yourself to believe it's there, even though you might not be able to see it right now. Okay, that's been today's video. Until next time, remember, becoming unfuckwithable doesn't happen by chance or hope. No one gives it to you. You become it through your actions. Take action.